The notification sound from Lila's phone had been going off every 30 seconds for the past hour, and each time it did, my wife jumped like someone had fired a starter pistol. I was hunched over my laptop in our cramped living room, uploading footage from today's commercial drone survey of a construction site, when she burst through the front door like a tornado made of cigarette smoke and cheap vodka. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Travis, we need to talk. Lila dropped her oversized purse with a thud that rattled our coffee table. The smell hit me immediately. Marlboro Lights and bottom-shelf tequila with undertones of some cologne I didn't recognize. She'd been at the bar for her shift, supposedly, but our dive bar didn't serve premium liquor, and Lila never smoked. I saved my work and looked up at my wife of 8 years. Her dark hair was messier than usual, lipstick smudged, and she had that manic energy she got when she was about to drop a bomb on my life. What's up? Sabrina needs help with the kids again this weekend. All weekend, Friday night through Sunday evening. She crossed her arms, trying to look authoritative, but the effect was ruined by the way she kept glancing at her phone. I already told her yes. I blinked. All weekend? Lila, that's 3 kids under 10. They're completely wild. Remember last time when they broke our TV and drew on the walls with permanent markers? They're family, Travis. Family helps family. Another notification chimed, and her hand twitched toward her phone. Besides, you're good with them. Good with them? I spent 4 hours scraping crayon off our kitchen cabinets, and that was just from a 2-hour visit. I closed my laptop and really looked at her. Why can't Sabrina watch her own kids? She has things to do. Important things. Lila's phone buzzed again, and this time she couldn't resist checking it. A smile flickered across her face before she caught herself. Look, it's simple. Either you help out with the kids every weekend, or maybe you should just find somewhere else to be. There it was. The ultimatum. Delivered with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. I've been flying drones professionally for 6 years, mapping everything from construction sites to accident scenes for insurance companies. You learn to see patterns from above, to notice things that don't make sense when you're too close to the ground. And right now, looking at my wife, every instinct I'd developed was screaming that something was very, very wrong. Every weekend? I asked carefully. Every weekend. She was already heading toward the bedroom. I'm going back to work. Vince needs me to close tonight. It's Friday. You never work Friday closes. She paused in the doorway. Well, now I do. Things change, Travis. People change. Another notification sound. Maybe it's time you changed, too. After she left, reeking of lies and that unfamiliar cologne, I sat in the silence of our apartment and tried to piece together the puzzle. Lila had been different for weeks now. New clothes that we couldn't afford on our budget, secretive about her phone, staying out later, and now this sudden urgency about babysitting Sabrina's kids every single weekend. I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared rideshare account. Lila didn't drive, had lost her license to a DUI 3 years ago, so she used our account for everything. The history told an interesting story. For the past 6 weeks, every Saturday night, she'd been dropped off at the same address, 247 Oak Street, apartment 4B. I knew that address. It was where Ryder Kane lived. Ryder was one of those guys who never quite grew up, still acting like he was the star quarterback, even though he was pushing 40 and worked sporadically in construction. He'd been sniffing around Lila for months, showing up at her bar, offering to give her rides, always with some story about how misunderstood he was. Lila ate it up. He's just a friend, she'd said when I'd mentioned it. He's going through a rough time with Tessa. Tessa was Ryder's on-and-off girlfriend, a dental hygienist who was way too good for him. If Ryder was going through a rough time with Tessa, I was starting to understand why. My phone rang. Sabrina. Hey, Travis, is Lila there? She just left for work. What's up? I wanted to thank her for offering to take the kids this weekend, but I told her I don't need help. My mom's coming up from Portland to watch them while I handle some business. The pieces clicked into place with an almost audible snap. Sabrina, has Lila been helping you with the kids on weekends recently? What? No, not for months. I thought she was working extra shifts at the bar. A pause. Travis, is everything okay? I was staring at Lila's phone, which she'd left on the coffee table in her rush to get out. The screen lit up with another notification. A text message from Ryder with a little heart emoji next to his name. Can't wait for tonight. Don't forget the tequila. Travis, you still there? Yeah, Sabrina, everything's fine. I'll talk to you later. I hung up and picked up Lila's phone. She'd never been careful about security. Her passcode was our anniversary date. The message thread with Ryder went back weeks. Flirty texts, inside jokes, and enough innuendo to make me want to throw the phone against the wall. Instead, I took screenshots of everything. Saturday morning, I woke up alone. Lila had texted around midnight saying she was staying at Sabrina's to help with the kids, except I knew she wasn't at Sabrina's. I knew exactly where she was. I made coffee and called my buddy Ellis, who ran a construction crew and had known me since high school. You busy today? Not particularly. Why? I need help moving some things, and maybe a place to crash for a while. Ellis didn't ask questions, which is why we'd been friends for 20 years. I'll be there in an hour. While I waited, I did what I do best. I gathered intelligence. I transferred half our savings to a personal account I'd opened Friday night. I changed the passwords on all our shared accounts. I packed my essential belongings, my drone equipment, and my laptop into 3 neat boxes. Then I drove to Lila's bar. The Rusty Anchor was exactly what you'd expect from a dive bar in a mid-sized Maine town. Sticky floors, a jukebox that had been playing the same 40 songs since 1987, and regulars who treated it like their personal living room. Vince, the manager, was restocking beer behind the bar when I walked in. Travis, don't usually see you in here during the day. Vince was a good guy, mid-50s, who'd been running the place for a decade. He had no tolerance for drama and treated his employees fairly as long as they didn't bring their personal problems to work. Just thought I'd stop by and see how things are going. I ordered a beer I didn't want and made small talk for a few minutes before casually steering the conversation where I needed it. Lila mentioned she's been working a lot of extra shifts lately. Vince frowned. Extra shifts? She's been asking to cut back her hours, actually. Said she had family obligations on weekends. Huh. Must have misunderstood. I took a sip of beer. You know that guy, Ryder Kane? I think he comes in here sometimes. Used to. Had to ban him last month. Vince's expression darkened. Caught him dealing pills in the bathroom. Told him if I saw him on the property again, I'd call the cops. Interesting. Lila had failed to mention that her friend was banned from her workplace for drug dealing. I finished my beer and drove to Oak Street. Ryder's apartment complex was a run-down collection of buildings that had seen better decades. I parked across the street and waited. At 2:30, Lila emerged from Building 4, looking around nervously before walking to the corner where a rideshare was waiting. I followed at a distance as the car headed toward Sabrina's neighborhood. But instead of stopping at Sabrina's house, it continued to the mall. I watched Lila get out and immediately call another rideshare. 20 minutes later, she was back at Oak Street. She was covering her tracks, creating a false trail in case someone checked her rideshare history. It was actually pretty clever, which meant she'd been planning this for a while. My phone buzzed with a text from Ellis. Truck's loaded. Where do you want your stuff? I had one more stop to make first. Ryder's building had the kind of security that looked impressive, but was actually useless. A locked front door that residents constantly propped open for convenience. I walked right in and found apartment 4B. I could hear music and laughter through the thin walls. I knocked on the door next to Ryder's. A college-aged kid answered, looking annoyed at being disturbed. "Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for my wife, Lila. She's been spending time with your neighbor Ryder, and there's been a family emergency." The kid's expression shifted from annoyed to sympathetic. "Oh man, yeah, she's been here like every weekend for the past month. Ryder's been bragging about her to everyone, but they left about an hour ago." "Bragging about her how?" "You know, guy talk, about how he's got this married woman wrapped around his finger, how her husband doesn't suspect anything." The kid paused, studying my face. "Oh shit. You're the husband, aren't you?" I thanked him and left before I did something I'd regret. Back in my truck, I pulled out my phone and found Tessa's number in my contacts. Ryder's girlfriend deserved to know what kind of man she was dating. I sent her a carefully worded text along with screenshots of Lila's messages. "Thought you should know what Ryder's been up to while you're at work. I'm sorry you have to find out this way." Her response came back within minutes. "Thank you. I've suspected for weeks but didn't have proof. That bastard is going to pay." Ellis was waiting at my apartment when I got back, sitting in his truck with the engine running. "You look like hell, man. What's going on?" "Lila's been cheating with Ryder Kane." Ellis whistled low. "That piece of shit? I fired him from my crew last year for stealing tools." "Apparently, stealing is a hobby of his." I handed Ellis the apartment keys. "I'm changing the locks tomorrow. She can get her stuff when she's ready to have an adult conversation about divorce." "Where's she going to stay?" I thought about that. Lila had burned bridges with most of her friends over the years with her drama and selfishness. Sabrina was about to find out she'd been lied to and used. Ryder's place was about to become very uncomfortable once Tessa confronted him. I guess she'll figure it out. She's good at making new arrangements. We loaded my boxes into Ellis's truck and drove to his place across town. As we unloaded my belongings into his spare room, my phone started buzzing with calls from Lila. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message was confused. "Travis, where are you? I came home and all your stuff is gone. Call me." The second was angry. "This is ridiculous. Whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. Call me back right now." The third was panicked. "Please call me. We need to talk. I can explain everything." I deleted them all without listening to the rest. Sunday morning, I woke up in Ellis's spare room to the sound of my phone ringing. "Sabrina. Travis, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Shoot. Has Lila been lying to me about watching my kids?" I sat up in bed. "What happened?" "She showed up at my house yesterday afternoon, crying, saying you'd kicked her out and she needed somewhere to stay. She offered to watch the kids to earn her keep. But Travis, she was drunk at 3 in the afternoon, and she kept getting text messages that made her either giggle or start crying. My kids don't need to see that." "Where is she now?" I told her to leave. She said she was going to stay with a friend named Ryder. Sabrina's voice was tight with anger. "Travis, my kids have been asking for months why Aunt Lila never comes around anymore. I kept making excuses, but the truth is, she only calls when she wants something. And now I find out she's been using my family as an excuse to lie to you." "I'm sorry, Sabrina. I didn't know she was dragging you into this." "Don't apologize, just tell me. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" That was Sabrina. Even when she was furious, she was thinking about other people. It was a trait she definitely didn't share with her sister. "I'm fine, staying with Ellis for now." "Good. And Travis? Whatever you decide to do about this situation, you have my support." After we hung up, I made coffee and checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Lila and a string of increasingly desperate text messages. The latest one, sent at 6 a.m., was particularly interesting. "Ryder's being weird. Can I please just come home? I'll explain everything." I was starting to get a picture of how Lila's weekend was going. She'd been kicked out by her sister and now her boyfriend was probably dealing with an angry girlfriend who'd seen the evidence of his cheating. The fantasy was colliding with reality, and Lila was discovering that being the other woman wasn't as glamorous as she'd imagined. Ellis emerged from his bedroom, already dressed for the day. "You want to grab breakfast? My treat." "Actually, I have a better idea. How do you feel about a little reconnaissance mission?" Ellis grinned. "I'm listening." I explained my plan as we drove toward downtown. The Rusty Anchor opened at noon on Sundays for football games and day drinking. If Lila was desperate enough, she might try to pick up an extra shift, or at least find some friendly faces who didn't know about her situation yet. We arrived at 11:45 and parked across the street. At exactly noon, Vince unlocked the front door and flipped the open sign. 10 minutes later, Lila's rideshare pulled up. She looked terrible. Yesterday's clothes, smudged makeup, hair that hadn't seen a brush. She walked into the bar like she owned the place, which was typical Lila. Even in crisis, she led with confidence. "Think we should go in?" Ellis asked. "Not yet. Let's see what happens." What happened was Tessa. Ryder's girlfriend arrived 15 minutes later in a Honda Civic that had seen better years. She was a small woman, maybe 5'4", but she walked into that bar like she was ready for war. "Now we go in," I said. The scene inside was better than anything I could have planned. Lila was behind the bar, apparently trying to convince Vince to let her work, while Tessa stood in front of the bar with her arms crossed, waiting. "Just need a few extra shifts to get back on my feet," Lila was saying. "Lila," Vince's voice was patient but firm, "you're not scheduled today, and frankly, you look like you've been on a 3-day bender." "I'm fine. I just had a rough night." "Yeah, I bet you did." Tessa's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "Rough night with my boyfriend." The bar went quiet. Even the jukebox seemed to sense the tension and switched to a slower song. Lila's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." Tessa pulled out her phone and started reading. "Can't wait for tonight. Don't forget the tequila." She looked up. "Sound familiar?" "Tessa, listen." "Oh, I'm listening. I'm listening to how you've been screwing my boyfriend for weeks while pretending to be his friend." Tessa's voice was rising. "I'm listening to how you used your own family as an alibi to sneak around." Vince stepped forward. "Ladies, maybe we should take this outside." "No," Tessa said firmly. "She wants to air her dirty laundry in public. Let's air it." She turned back to Lila. "Where's Ryder now, by the way? Because when I confronted him this morning with the evidence, he said it was all your idea, said you threw yourself at him and he felt sorry for you." Lila's confident facade cracked. "He said what?" "He said you were just a lonely housewife looking for attention, and he was trying to be nice." Tessa smiled coldly. "Then he packed his stuff and left to stay with his brother in Bangor. Didn't even say goodbye to you, did he?" The few customers in the bar were watching like it was a soap opera. Ellis nudged me. "Should we leave? Are you kidding? This is just getting good." Lila was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "You don't understand. My marriage is over. I have nowhere to go." "Your marriage is over because you destroyed it," Tessa shot back. "And you have nowhere to go because you burned every bridge you had for a guy who doesn't give a damn about you." Vince had heard enough. "Lila, I think you should leave. Come back when you're sober and we'll talk about your schedule." "Vince, please. I need this job." "You need a lot of things. A job is the least of your problems." As Lila gathered her purse and headed for the door, she spotted me sitting at a corner table. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw the exact moment she realized I'd witnessed her humiliation. She walked over to my table, ignoring Ellis completely. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough." "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I considered the question seriously. "You know what, Lila? I thought I would. I thought watching you face the consequences of your choices would feel good." I paused. "Mostly, I just feel tired." "Travis, please. Can we go somewhere and talk? I can explain everything." "What's to explain?" You've been cheating on me for weeks. You used your sister's kids as cover. You lied about working extra shifts. You gave me an ultimatum designed to get me out of the apartment so you could have your affair in our bed. I stood up. The only thing I don't understand is why you thought you wouldn't get caught. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You were going to string me along indefinitely while you played house with Ryder? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. The locks are changed, Lila. When you're ready to discuss divorce terms like an adult, you can call my lawyer. I handed her a business card. Until then, stay away from me. I walked out of the bar with Ellis, leaving Lila standing alone in a room full of strangers who'd just watched her life fall apart in real time. That was harsh, Ellis said as we got in his truck. She gave me an ultimatum, remember? Do what she wanted or leave. I chose option 3. What's option 3? I smiled for the first time in days. Make her leave instead. Monday morning brought a call from Vince at the Rusty Anchor. Travis, I need to ask you something, and I want you to know I'm not taking sides here. What's up, Vince? Did Lila steal money from your joint account? I sat up straighter. Not exactly. Why? She came in this morning trying to cash her last paycheck, but the bank called and said there was some kind of fraud alert on her account. She's claiming you stole her money. I moved our savings to prevent her from draining the account while I figure out divorce proceedings. It's my money too, and she's proven she can't be trusted with financial decisions. That's what I figured. Look, Travis, I've known you both for years, and I've seen this kind of thing before. Lila's been telling anyone who'll listen that you're trying to destroy her life out of spite. What do you think? Vince was quiet for a moment. I think she destroyed her own life, and she's looking for someone else to blame. But she's got a few people feeling sorry for her. Such as? Some of the regulars. You know how it is. They hear abandoned wife and frozen bank accounts, and they start taking up collections. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Lila was good at playing the victim, and she had years of practice manipulating people's sympathy. If I didn't control the narrative, she'd paint herself as the wronged party, and me as the vindictive husband. Vince, I'm going to send you something. Feel free to share it with anyone who's thinking about helping Lila get back on her feet. I hung up and crafted a careful email with screenshots of Lila's text messages, the rideshare records, and a timeline of her lies. I sent it to Vince, Sabrina, and a few mutual friends who needed to know the truth before Lila got to them with her version of events. Then, I did something I'd been planning since Saturday night. I loaded my drone equipment into my truck and drove to the park where Lila had been meeting Ryder before his hasty departure to Bangor. Lila was there, sitting on a bench with her phone pressed to her ear. Even from a distance, I could tell the conversation wasn't going well. She was gesturing wildly with her free hand, her voice carrying across the empty park. I launched my drone and flew it high enough to be invisible from the ground, but close enough to capture clear video. Lila was crying again, begging whoever was on the phone, probably Ryder, to come back and help her figure things out. Told you I'd leave him for you, she was saying. You said we'd be together. A pause. What do you mean it was just for fun? You said you loved me. Another pause. Longer this time. Fine. You're just like every other man I've ever trusted. Use me and throw me away. She hung up and threw her phone at the ground, where it bounced off the concrete and landed in the grass. Then she put her head in her hands and sobbed. I felt a moment of something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the ultimatum, the lies, the months of gaslighting and manipulation. The woman crying on that bench had made her choices. Now, she was living with them. I landed the drone and drove home, to Ellis's place, which was feeling more like home every day. Tuesday brought news that Ryder had been arrested in Bangor for outstanding warrants related to unpaid child support. Apparently, his brother had turned him in for the reward money. Tessa texted me the news with a laughing emoji and a message. Karma's a snake, and so was I. Thanks for the evidence. Wednesday, Sabrina called with an update. Lila showed up at my work today, crying and begging me to let her stay with me and the kids. She said you've turned everyone against her and she has nowhere else to go. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that I'm not mad at you for her choices, and I'm not going to expose my children to her drama while she sorts out her life. Sabrina's voice was sad, but firm. She's my sister, and I love her, but she's toxic right now. Maybe she always was, and I just didn't want to see it. I'm sorry this is affecting your family. Don't be. My kids deserve better than an aunt who uses them as props in her lies. They're asking why Lila seems so sad all the time, and I don't know how to explain that some adults make choices that hurt everyone around them. Thursday morning, I was reviewing drone footage at Ellis's kitchen table when my phone rang. Unknown number. Travis, this is Detective Morrison with the Maine State Police. What can I do for you, Detective? I need to ask you a few questions about your wife, Lila Redden. She filed a complaint alleging harassment and financial abuse. I see. Should I have a lawyer present? That's your choice, but this seems like a misunderstanding more than a criminal matter. Would you be willing to come in and give your side of the story? An hour later, I was sitting in an interview room at the state police barracks, explaining the situation to Detective Morrison, a tired-looking woman in her 40s who'd clearly seen this kind of domestic drama before. So you moved the money to prevent her from accessing it during divorce proceedings? She asked. Half the money, to a personal account in my name. The other half is still in our joint account, which she can access. I showed her my bank statements. I also have documentation showing that she was using our shared funds to pay for rideshares to her boyfriend's apartment. Detective Morrison reviewed the evidence I'd brought. The text messages, the rideshare records, the bank statements. Mr. Redden, have you threatened your wife in any way? No, ma'am. I've avoided all contact with her except through my attorney. Have you damaged any of her property or prevented her from retrieving her belongings? No. I changed the locks on our apartment, but I've told her through my lawyer that she can arrange to get her things any time. Have you shared intimate photos or private information about her with anyone? I shared evidence of her infidelity with people who needed to know the truth, but nothing intimate or private beyond that. Detective Morrison closed her notebook. Mr. Redden, your wife seems to be having a difficult time accepting the consequences of her actions. What she's describing as harassment looks like a man protecting his assets during a divorce. What she's calling financial abuse is standard practice in contested separations. So, no charges? Not from what I can see, but I'd recommend you document everything and avoid any direct contact with her until your divorce is finalized. People in her situation sometimes escalate things when they feel cornered. As I drove back to Ellis's place, I realized Detective Morrison was right. Lila was cornered, desperate, and running out of options. That made her dangerous. I needed to end this before she found a way to make things worse for everyone involved. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after Lila's ultimatum, I woke up to find my truck's windshield smashed and bastard keyed into the driver's side door. Ellis found me in his driveway, staring at the damage. Security cameras? I asked. Yep. Got the whole thing. Ellis pulled out his phone and showed me the footage. Lila, clearly drunk, attacking my truck with a baseball bat at 3 a.m. Want me to call the cops? Not yet. I've got a better idea. I spent Friday preparing for what I'd started calling Operation Reality Check. I edited together a comprehensive video using my drone footage, Ellis's security camera footage, and screenshots of all Lila's lies and manipulations. The final product was a 12-minute documentary that told the complete story of Lila's affair and its aftermath. Saturday morning, I uploaded the video to a private YouTube account and sent the link to everyone who mattered. Vince, Sabrina, our mutual friends, Lila's co-workers, and even some of the regular customers at the Rusty Anchor who'd been contributing to Lila's emergency fund. Then I called Detective Morrison and reported the vandalism, providing her with Ellis's security footage. By noon, my phone was buzzing with responses. The general consensus was shock at how thoroughly Lila had lied to everyone, followed by anger at being manipulated. Vince called personally. Jesus, Travis. I had no idea it was this bad. I've got 3 guys here who gave her money for groceries yesterday, and she spent it on a bottle of vodka and a carton of cigarettes. She's been playing everyone, Vince. I just wanted people to know the truth before she convinced them to fund her next bad decision. Well, mission accomplished. Word's getting around fast. By Sunday afternoon, Lila's support network had evaporated. Sabrina called to tell me that several family members had reached out to express their support for me and their disappointment in Lila's behavior. She called me this morning, screaming about how you've ruined her life, Sabrina said. I told her she ruined her own life, and now she's facing the consequences. How are the kids handling all this? They're confused but resilient. I explained that sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love, and that's what happened with Aunt Lila. They seem to understand that she needs to fix herself before she can be part of our family again. Monday brought the call I'd been expecting. Travis, this is Janet Walsh, Lila's attorney. We need to discuss settlement terms. The divorce proceeding was surprisingly straightforward. Faced with overwhelming evidence of her infidelity and the complete collapse of her support system, Lila agreed to a settlement that gave me the apartment, most of our assets, and a clean break from her debts. The final hearing was scheduled for Wednesday morning. I arrived at the courthouse to find Lila waiting outside with her lawyer, looking like a shadow of her former self. She'd lost weight, her hair was unwashed, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. She tried to approach me as I walked toward the courthouse entrance. Travis, please, can we just talk for 5 minutes? I stopped and looked at her. Really looked at her. This was the woman I'd married 8 years ago, who'd promised to love and honor me through good times and bad. This was also the woman who'd given me an ultimatum designed to destroy our marriage so she could pursue a fantasy with a small-time drug dealer. What do you want to talk about, Lila? I want to apologize for all of it. I know I screwed up, but I never meant for things to go this far. What did you think would happen? That I'd just accept being kicked out of my own life while you played house with Ryder? I don't know what I thought. I was confused and stupid, and I made terrible choices. Tears were running down her face. But did you have to destroy everything? My job, my family, my friends? Did you have to make sure I lost everything? I considered her question seriously. Lila, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own actions. Your job? You lost that when you lied to your boss and showed up drunk. Your family? You lost them when you used Sabrina's kids as cover for your affair. Your friends? You lost them when they realized you'd been manipulating their sympathy while living a double life. So this is it? 8 years of marriage and you just walk away? You walked away first. You just didn't bother to tell me. The hearing lasted 20 minutes. The judge, unimpressed by Lila's attempts to claim emotional distress, granted the divorce on grounds of adultery and awarded me everything I'd asked for. As we left the courthouse, Lila made one final attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Travis, I know you hate me, but I'm going to be homeless. I've got nowhere to go and no money. Can't you at least... No. I turned to face her one last time. You gave me an ultimatum, remember? You said either I do what you want, or I should find somewhere else to be. Well, I found somewhere else to be. Now it's your turn. I walked away and didn't look back. That evening, Ellis and I were at the Rusty Anchor, celebrating the end of my marriage with a beer and a burger. The bar was crowded for a Wednesday night, and I noticed several people pointing at me and whispering. Not maliciously, more like I was a local celebrity. Vince came over to our table with a bottle of top-shelf whiskey. This one's on the house, from the guys at the bar. He gestured toward a group of regulars who raised their glasses in my direction. What's the occasion? Word is you handled your situation like a gentleman. No violence, no drama, just good old-fashioned consequences. Vince poured 3 shots. Around here, that's worth celebrating. As we raised our glasses, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, thinking it might be Lila from a borrowed phone. Instead, it was from Tessa. Heard about your divorce. Ryder got 18 months for the child support thing. Thought you should know your ex tried to visit him in jail, but he refused to see her. Guess she's finally figured out what kind of man she threw her marriage away for. I showed the message to Ellis, who laughed and shook his head. So what now? You going to stay in my spare room forever? Actually, I put an offer in on a house yesterday. Small place with a big yard, perfect for drone work. I raised my glass again. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Ellis agreed. And to the weekend she lost everything. We drank, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not happiness exactly, but the calm satisfaction of a job well done. Lila had tried to manipulate me into accepting an unacceptable situation, and I'd refused to play along. She'd lost everything, but only because she'd gambled everything on a fantasy that was never going to last. I'd kept my dignity, my integrity, and my self-respect. In the end, those were the only things that really mattered. 6 months later, I was settled into my new house when I ran into Sabrina at the grocery store. She looked good, relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. How are the kids? I asked. Great. They ask about you sometimes. I tell them you're doing well. She paused. Travis, I want you to know that cutting Lila out of our lives was the right decision. The kids are calmer, I'm less stressed, and we don't have to walk on eggshells wondering what drama she's going to create next. Have you heard from her? Christmas card from somewhere in Florida. No return address. I think she's finally figured out that she burned every bridge she had here. Sabrina smiled sadly. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, but I'm done enabling her search. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the choices that had brought me to this point. Lila had given me an ultimatum that was designed to force me into an impossible situation. Instead of accepting either of her options, I'd created a third choice, making her face the full consequences of her actions without protection or support from the people she'd been lying to. It wasn't cruel, it was just honest. And sometimes, honesty is the most devastating weapon you can use against someone who's built their life on lies. I pulled into my driveway and looked at my small house with its big yard, perfect for drone flights and quiet evenings. This was what winning looked like, not revenge or destruction, but the simple satisfaction of building something better from the ruins of something that was never going to work. Lila had wanted me to choose between accepting her betrayal or leaving my own life. Instead, I'd chosen to make her leave, and in doing so, I'd discovered something important. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. I walked into my house, poured myself a drink, and raised a toast to the empty room. Here's to ultimatums, and to the people smart enough not to accept them.